that, if we're throwing children in the garbage, what we have to realize is that allowing abortion, and some politicians try to do this. In fact, the entire Democratic Party tries to do this in its platform, trying to claim to be in favor of social justice and, oh, we're concerned about the weak and the marginalized and the poor. And yet, no restrictions on abortion. We can keep throwing these children away. Well, you can't have it both ways. You simply can't. You're not going to be able to teach society to feed the poor and the hungry if you can't feed your own children in the womb. You're not going to be able to eliminate capital punishment by teaching society not to kill the guilty if you haven't learned how not to kill the innocent. You're not going to be able to build a society that welcomes the immigrant across the border of the nation if you can't welcome children across the border of the womb. You're not going to be able to maintain peace between nations if you can't maintain peace between a mother and her own child. So very, very crucial. Joan, we are so happy you came to the Walk for Life. You are a big supporter. I did not know that you got your start here. Yes, came to the Walk for Life. I always do. It's one of the best events of the year. Next year, by the way, at the Walk for Life West Coast, I will be one of the main speakers. And I'm looking forward to that very, very much. Eva Montaigne is a good friend and colleague, and she already told me, Father, we've got you on the schedule there to be one of the main speakers in the Walk for Life last time. So we have a few of our Twitch friends making comments. Thank you. Thank you all. Tacos on Thursday. Good morning to you. And Under Barapatar, I want to be able to pronounce your names correctly, says hello. Why do you think we should end abortion? So, Tacos on Thursday, thank you very much for that question. We should end abortion because look at what it is. When you look at what it is, you realize that although many people are saying, well, this is women's freedom, women's health, right to choose, the actual procedure of abortion is ending the life of a child. And that's really all the reason we need to say that we should bring an end to it. In other words, we want to bring an end to abortion for the same reason we want to bring an end to child abuse. We want to bring an end to the killing of people by any kind of violence. The problem we have, and that sometimes what makes the conversation difficult, is that we say the word abortion, but we never define it. And one of the things that we always very much believe in is starting with looking at what abortion is before we even form an opinion about whether it should be allowed or whether it should be ended. Before we form an opinion about that, we need to look at what abortion is. So you look at the textbooks, for example, the medical textbooks on how to do abortions. And they're describing how to dismember the child, literally. I mean, they use that word, dismember. So pulling a child apart, we believe this is really not a good idea. One of our other Twitch friends is saying now, how would you think that Jesus Christ would say if I asked him out on a dinner? My friend, he is inviting you to dinner. What we believe about Jesus is that he is in our midst. He is alive and with us. He is risen from the dead. And I don't know if which particular denomination you belong to, but of course, in many of the denominations, we have the Lord's Supper, and I, as a Catholic priest, celebrate the Mass. And what we believe about that is that it is the Lord's Supper, as we say, and that when we have the Mass, Jesus actually is there, and he feeds us with the Holy Eucharist. He feeds us with his body and blood, the bread from heaven. If you read the scriptures, if you look at John chapter 6, you'll be able to see what he says there in regard to eating dinner with him. And we can do that every day if we like. Tacos on Thursday, follow-up question, do you think we should reduce abortion or end it? Well, we have to end it ultimately, but we can't end it all in one step. There are many steps that need to be taken, and so on our way to ending it, we are in fact reducing it. We need to keep reducing it. And one of the ways we reduce it, by the way, is the existence of what we call the pregnancy centers all across the United States and in various parts of the world too. There are pregnancy centers, and you can find out more at pregnancycenters.org. And these centers every day are intervening to help those who are feel like they have no choice but to have an abortion. Because you have to understand, people don't get abortions because of freedom of choice. They get them because they feel they have no freedom and no choice. So when the pregnancy centers come forward and say, well, call us if you're pregnant, you don't know what to do, we'll have you, we'll give you counseling, we'll give you advice, we'll help you in various ways. And this reduces the numbers of abortions. So a lot of good things going on, but check out pregnancycenters.org. Laura is asking, are you ever attacked or threatened for your pro-life position because you are visible twice a day? Oh yes, all the time. Absolutely. And I have had over the years, because we've been visible not only on the media for many years, but out in the public in many different speaking engagements and in protests, public protests, and so forth. So a lot of people attack us verbally. I've been spat upon one day praying in front of an abortion facility. Pro-abortion guy walked up and spit right on my face. We just kept on praying, and I gave him a blessing. And I've had death threats, as have other pro-life leaders. And we even had somebody arrested in New York that was threatening me and Professor Robbie George. You may remember some articles about that years ago. And this, we understand that this is a volatile issue, just like segregation was in the time of the Civil Rights Movement. And you know, it goes with the territory. We follow Jesus' advice of praying for and blessing our enemies and our persecutors. These are angry people, and we simply continue proclaiming the truth about our message. Okay, Bamba Caramba, what do you say to those who attack you and other Catholics, even priests, because you support Trump? You know what I say to them? That's what I say to them. Unapologetically support the president. First of all, because he's the president of the United States. Secondly, because he is making America great in so many ways. And thirdly, you know, my motivation in politics, many people, when it comes to their political engagement, are motivated by one particular issue that really drives them. They may be concerned about many different issues. We all are concerned about many different issues. But for most people, there's some particular key motivation that drives them into supporting one or another candidate. And for me, that issue obviously is abortion. This is a president who is very, very clear that abortion has to be ended. And like he said in the State of the Union address just recently, like he said at the National Prayer Breakfast just recently, he said the same thing that the church says: every child, born and unborn, is made in the image and likeness of God and needs to be protected. So that is very simply the motivation that I have for supporting him and his agenda. Rosaline asks a very interesting question, an important question. How are the remains of these little ones being handled? Some states, as a matter of fact, in Indiana, a law was passed that said that these remains have to be handled in a respectful way once a baby is aborted. And by the way, Rosaline, a lot of people who have had abortions ask themselves that question: what happened to my baby? And that's a question that haunts them and that bothers them. And I'm going to tell you what the abortion facilities do to the babies in a moment, but what was passed in Indiana was a law that said you have to treat these remains with respect. That law is being challenged by the pro-abortion people, and it's making its way up to the Supreme Court as a case that the court may decide. We'll have to see if, in fact, they take that case. But brothers and sisters, the sad reality is that the abortion facilities throw these bodies in the trash. They incinerate them. George Tiller, when he practiced at his abortion facility in Wichita, Kansas, had an incinerator and his workers who worked there, some of whom came out of the industry, said they would do their work in the clinic, and then said that they could smell the babies burning. We have found babies in the trash. A number of pro-life advocates have collected babies from the garbage cans outside the abortion clinics. Now, some of these facilities actually harvest the organs, and one of you is mentioning this, is harvest the organs and sell them to universities. I can show you the order forms for brains, eyes, livers, hearts, legs, arms. These are being used for research purposes. So these are some of the things. Some of them are just, flushed down the drain. It's really sad. Sometimes some of these babies who have been found have been brought to people like me, pro-life leaders and clergy, so that we could give them a funeral and a burial. So I've done and led a number of these services around the country, including down at EWTN at Mother Angelica's Shrine. We buried several aborted babies there. Okay, Linda says, please repeat the stats. Has there been a decline in the number of abortions? There has been. Right now, the Center for the Alan Guttmacher Institute, which is one of the key sources of the statistics, says there's just under 1 million per year, and the abortion numbers are lower than they've been, going down each year. Still way, way, way too many, but that's about what it is right now. Marlem is asking, will President Trump turn over Roe v. Wade? Well, of course, Roe v. Wade is a Supreme Court decision. And so it would be up to the Supreme Court to reverse it. But President Trump can do a lot of things as president. He cannot unilaterally end abortion because, remember, of course, we have the 3 branches of government. And the 3 branches of government have certain checks and balances built in where they each limit the power of the others. However, the president is ready to sign legislation that, for example, will protect babies in the later stages of pregnancy, and Congress can pass that legislation. If they send it to his desk, he'll sign it. And he can direct the federal agencies to do everything in their power to recognize the humanity of the unborn, to keep money away from the abortion industry, and he has done a lot of that as well. Joan is saying President Trump is not supported from some Catholic pulpits in California because of his wall. I'm glad you support President Trump. It gives us leverage to talk to the clergy who criticize him. Their focus needs to be on stopping abortion. Yes, I agree with you completely. I don't know what the clergy would have against the wall, to tell you the truth. Do they lock their front door when they go to bed at night, I wonder? Do they have any fences around their churches or rectories? There's a big wall at the Vatican. I fail to understand where some of these guys are coming from when they talk about this. The president is not anti-immigrant. The president is not trying to keep people out of the country. One of you are asking, can the Supreme Court, can Congress reverse Roe v. Wade or the Supreme Court? The Supreme Court has to reverse a Supreme Court decision, but Congress in its laws can challenge Roe v. Wade by passing laws that protect the unborn, and if those laws get challenged in court, well, then the court can use that as an opportunity to weaken or reverse Roe v. Wade. So there is an interplay in the dynamics between the legislative and the judicial branch, and of course the executive branch, because the president would be the one to sign those bills that come to him from Congress, to sign them into law. One of you was just asking me, can you comment on the economics of the abortion industry? Well, the abortion industry brings in, a lot of money. It's a $500 million a year industry, if not more. Planned Parenthood gets $500 million a year in taxpayer money alone. They get all kinds of private donations as well from pro-abortion billionaires. And a lot of the money inside of the abortion industry ends up going, guess where? It ends up going into the coffers of the pro-abortion politicians that keep voting to keep abortion legal. If you want to understand, what in the world would explain the radical, fanatical allegiance of, let's just take the Democratic members of Congress, for example, just with a half a handful of exceptions. What explains their radical allegiance to Planned Parenthood and the abortion industry? Well, money is one of the big reasons, because the money is flowing from the abortion industry into the pockets of these campaigns so that these people will continue to get reelected. Some of you are sending in prayer requests, and I want to remember those prayers, praying for your families and for their health and so forth, so we will remember those. Here's another question. If a girl doesn't want a child, should she be able to use contraceptives? Let's say she's just 15. In Sweden, age of consent is 15. Yes, thank you for mentioning that. Well, the thing about contraceptives that we have to understand is the impact on the health of the people who use them, and various contraceptives work in various ways, but we have to be careful of what the health effects are. They've been identified as carcinogens, for example. They have a lot of different after effects. What we try to do is to teach young people the proper meaning of sexual activity and making sure that they're preserving that for marriage. Some contraceptives also cause abortions. If you look again at the way that they operate in different ways. And some of them actually end up causing early abortion. So I would say information is key. Information, understanding what these contraceptives are doing. Of course, the church teaches that while abortion is the taking of a life, contraception in terms of preventing conception is a distortion of the meaning of human sexuality. As you're saying, can a condom hurt someone's health? Well, that depends on if it works. Of course, it's been demonstrated that they are not completely reliable in preventing sexually transmitted diseases. Again, it's so important to get some medical consultation in regard to all of that. Now, let's see. Preemies, less than 1.5 pounds are being denied NICU care in order to keep late abortion legal. Yes, that's right. Now, we're going to be having on our broadcasts in coming days some of our friends who are our medical advisors, and they're going to talk to us about how early some of these babies can be born. They're going to talk to us about viability. Even at 22 weeks of pregnancy, babies are being born and surviving. They're going to talk to us about the ways that we strengthen the chances for these babies to survive. And stay tuned for those medical discussions. Tacos on Thursday, thank you very much. It was nice talking to you, sir. I may not have the same opinion, but I respect your opinion. And I respect you as well. And it's great to talk to you and everybody involved. These conversations are important, aren't they? And in order to solve these problems in our society, we do need to make sure that we are at least talking with each other in a respectful way and listening to each other. And I appreciate you tuning in and making such great comments. Now, let's see. Some of you are talking about the fact that these broadcasts, Colleen, thank you very much. Love your broadcasts. You share much needed information. Yes, and that's what we are trying to do all the time, sharing the information that unfortunately does not get out there too easily. We have a lot of great colleagues in the pro-life movement, many different organizations who are helping to share this information. Many of them were gathered with us right here in our headquarters about a week ago, and we're working on some joint projects because we had like 45 different leaders in there. So I mean, these groups together, we're reaching tens of millions of people, and we're working on some joint projects together that you'll hear more about so that we can reach even more people. One of our friends is saying, my son was born under 2 pounds. Now he's 39 years old and is a healthy man. Isn't that wonderful? So many great stories about babies being born very, very early and very, very small, and yet surviving and living very, very prosperous and happy lives. Well, friends, I have to get on to some meetings here at headquarters, here at Priests for Life, so I'll be back tonight with another broadcast at 9 p.m. Eastern Time, and we'll continue answering your questions and sharing with you some very much needed information. Let me just answer one more thing before we go here. What Carmen is saying about, can you share about the, quote, sex education happening in our public schools? You know, unfortunately, Planned Parenthood is often the group that's giving that information. And what they do is they teach the mechanics of sex without the meaning of sex. They teach the how-to, but not the why, because they don't understand the why. They don't have a vision, an integral vision of human sexuality. Planned Parenthood will go in and they'll teach about sex education as if they're teaching a course on plumbing. And meanwhile, what does it mean, and how does sex interrelate with love, and how do relationships interrelate with children, and how does all this interrelate with God? And by teaching just the mechanics without the meaning, by teaching just the how instead of the why, our children are impoverished. Now, they should be getting the lessons about all of this in the family. It is the parents who have the primary obligation to educate their children in everything. And the parents, at their own choice, can use and should be able to use the schools of their choice, not to replace their role as the primary educators of their children, but to supplement that role. The parents still remain the ones in charge, and they'll use the schools, and they should monitor what the schools are saying and doing, and they should supplement that. And that's how all these things get passed on, should be in the family. Important thing to keep in mind, too, about Planned Parenthood coming into the school systems. Planned Parenthood is a criminal organization. They're engaged in all kinds of wrongdoing, and a lot of it is documented. More of it is being investigated. And so there's legal liability for a school system that brings in Planned Parenthood, because they, for example, have been caught in numerous undercover phone calls skirting the law and not failing to protect children from sexual predators. The point here is, if your school system hired a company to put up a swing set in the playground and it was a defective swing set, you're liable, the school district, the taxpayers are liable for the damage that can be done as a result of the defective swing set, and you wouldn't want to have that company contracting with the local school system. Same thing with Planned Parenthood. If they're a criminal organization, if they're doing all kinds of harm to our young people, we have to talk to our school boards about the legal liability that they face for bringing in this criminal enterprise to service in any way their children or their schools, even if it's just as a referral agency. We have to keep that in mind, and we'll talk more about that in a future broadcast. So, friends, let me give you a blessing. Thanks so much for all your comments and questions. It's always delightful to hear what you have to say. May the Lord bless you and protect you. May He give you a wonderful day and keep you always strong as advocates for the youngest and smallest children, the children in the womb. And may He bless you, the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Father Frank Pavone here of Priests for Life. Have a great day.
But you know what? When you and I take up this call and we talk about abortion, if we speak about it in church, we're told we're too political. If we speak about it in the political arena, we're told we're too religious. If we speak about it in the world of the media, it's too disturbing. In the world of business, it's too distracting. In the world of education, it's too controversial. In the streets, it's too disruptive. So abortion, if abortion is wrong, where do we go to say so? We go into the churches, we go into politics, into the media, into business, into education, and into the streets. Some churches haven't wanted to get involved in